Beau is Afraid, and boy, is he ever. We're going to do a review of Ari Aster's latest. This is a non-spoiler review. I know a lot of you guys are very excited about this movie and you want to know about it, but you don't want to know about it. I understand. We're going to do our absolute best here to not spoil anything. A little bit down the road, we will do a live spoiler discussion of this movie because I feel like it's the kind of thing that you really got to work through with people. So we want to talk about it with you down the road, but not just yet. Beau Is Afraid opens in New York and LA this weekend, April 14th, and then nationwide the 21st. So we're super early on it. We wanted to get to it as fast as we could. And Alonzo gets to try to describe it. But first, if you've not subscribed to us yet, we'd love to have you. We're heading into summer movie season here. All the big stuff is coming out, but we will always do reviews of movies like Beau Is Afraid. Yeah. So make sure that you're hanging out with us for that. Hit that little button. We'd love to have you join our little community here. Alonzo, please try and describe this movie.
I'm on my way. It's not safe, is it?
I sincerely doubt that.
Our idea of not spoiler may not be the same as your idea of not spoiler. So if you're like real skittish about knowing anything, just stop now and come back to this later. But we're going to do our best to sort of speak about this in the broadest terms possible.
Yep.
So Joaquin Phoenix is Beau. Oh my God, spoiler. No. Okay.
And he's afraid.
And he's afraid. Y'all, he lives in an urban hellscape and is supposed to go visit his mother on the anniversary of the death of his father, whom he never met. And after a visit with his therapist, various calamities occur that prevent him from being able to get to the airport. His mother is very upset to hear this. And then another calamity occurs that sends him off to the suburbs where he is tended to by a seemingly normal couple. Played by Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane. And then things just get weirder and more surreal from there. And this is a movie that starts out very much like trying to capture the feel of a nightmare, like Darren Aronofsky's Mother, I think, is sort of a great recent example of a movie that just puts you on edge and everything is not quite right. And it's that feeling you have when you're in a dream and you need to go somewhere or do a thing, but no one's listening to you and everyone's getting in your way and things keep happening. And then from there, it just kind of goes off into other broader directions. And ultimately, I don't know how to talk about this movie without.
I know. Well, let's talk about what works and what doesn't.
Sure,
let's do that.
It is a Candide-esque, picaresque journey through a man's life and suffering. This movie calls to mind a lot of other movies. You know, I thought about Mother. I thought about Eraserhead in the early parts, just with like his building and the way that things don't work and elevator doors don't quite close.
It's just off. Everything's a little bit off.
Everything's a little off. I thought about Charlie Kaufman a lot, especially in terms of there's certainly a point in which things are happening that are part of a stage presentation, but that are also reflective of the person's life who's watching the stage presentation. But ultimately, this movie at 3 hours, I don't think really holds up its sense of discovery. There comes a point where you just realize what you're going to get, and then you just keep getting it over and over again in different ways. And also, this is a movie about a character who ultimately is not to blame for any of the terrible things in his life, which means you are watching this poor bastard just be a victim over and over again. And that lacks a certain dramatic heft, I think, and isn't true to the way that anyone's life is, which is that not that we're all entirely responsible for ourselves and entirely the architects of our own existence, but we play some role in it. Right. We aren't just buffeted about by the forces of the universe or by other people, and so
he's a passenger in his own existence.
Exactly.
And that makes him inherently boring.
He's incredibly passive, and after a while you don't sympathize with his suffering because you realize that the movie is setting him up as this like Job figure, basically, who doesn't even argue with God. He just gets the shitty parts of being Job,
Yeah, it's 3 hours of slogging through molasses.
Kinda.
And quite frequently that molasses is spectacular to look at.
Absolutely.
And it has some dark comedy to it. And it has some moments that like things I can never unsee, things I've never seen before and never want to see again. But that's what Ari Aster does very well.
Sure.
So that's where I think this film is effective, in that if you look at Hereditary, if you look at Midsommar, he has just this uncanny knack for creating imagery, sensory experiences that get under your skin and stay there. They're so disturbing. They're so, as you put it, they're nightmarish. They're like something out of your subconscious. And he brings that up and makes it visual and tactile in ways that are unforgettable. So in that regard, over and over and over again, that does occur within the 3-hour odyssey of Beau Is Afraid. Having said that, like, I'm not sure I can recommend that you slog through this whole thing for 3 hours. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his 2 previous films, but there's like a cohesion and there's a focus and there's a tension to them, you know, from a narrative perspective, from a pacing perspective, that does not exist here. I mean, granted, he's trying to do something really different and he has done that, but I couldn't wait for it to be over. It was interminable. And then when it ends, it's like a shrug, like all of this for this. I found that frustrating.
I would rather thumb through the coffee table book of the like images of the film at times, I think, than actually sit through it. You know, and it's got this really amazing cast of people that you wouldn't expect to see in a movie like this, that makes it really interesting. And some of them were a surprise to me, so I won't mention them.
But they're on the IMDb page.
Yeah, you know, they're out there in the world if you really need to know. What annoys me about this movie is I would be much more forgiving about the pacing and about the repetitive nature of it if it came to a head in a way that was more meaningful and more insightful. And just instead, it kind of feels like this is stuff that Ari Aster should have worked out in therapy. And, you know, like, this isn't even like Philip Roth level, you know, navel gazing. It's beyond that.
Yeah. And you mentioned Charlie Kaufman. It reminded me a lot of like the Michelle Gondry, Spike Jonze collaborations as well. And like there's an animated section in the middle of it. Again, this is not a spoiler. Our friend Carlos Aguilar did a whole huge story on the animators, which is vibrant and colorful and weird in a way that reminded me of like Julie Taymor's stuff. But again, like, that just keeps going. Like, that section just keeps going and going and going. I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, I wish someone had taken this material and this idea and just like wrestled it into like a tight 2-hour nightmare hellscape, right? That really like left you on the edge of your seat. I realized that a lot of our friends love this movie a lot, and they did feel like it was breathless and urgent, and I would like to see that movie that they are talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I think the air comes out of the balloon at some point, unfortunately. But yeah, this is going to be a very divisive film. I know critics who love it and think it's brilliant. I know critics who hate it more than we did. So yeah, it will be much discussed by those who see it. And certainly I think, you know, as I said in our reaction thing, it's a big swing. I have to admire Aster for like not coasting on, you know, his first 2 movies. This is not Midsommar 2. This is its own thing. But I don't think it is as successful as it could have been. And I don't know that it really says anything that matters, or at least in a way that it thinks it does. But your mileage may vary. Other critics' mileages are already varying. So if this sounds challenging to you, if you like, if the idea of a movie that people are violently disagreeing over is catnip to you, then see it and see what you think and what you come away with. And
I love that kind of thing. Yeah. I love that kind of thing usually. Like, there are some what the fuck moments here over and over again where I'm like, this is going to get an F cinema score, and hooray for that. You know, that's exciting.
And that's a good thing.
I just wish that it worked for me. But like individual things, I want to mention Fiona Crombie as a production designer. I got to mention that because like over and over again, each scenario he's in is so vivid in its disturbing nature, in its off-putting nature, that I appreciate all the care that went into it from like a craft perspective.
The sound design is extraordinary. And this isn't like we're reaching for things to compliment. Like it is quite impressive and quite
disturbing,
complex and disturbing. Paul Sue is the supervising sound editor. That's, you know, definitely kudos there. There's a lot of craft here, and there's a lot of, he is putting ideas into this thing. I just don't think those ideas amount to anything, or much anyway.
What is your number?
Y'all don't come at me about this because I think the whole number thing is stupid. But
let's not give it a number then.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't think it is. I think this movie is a disappointment, but I think that it is a movie that is trying and is speaking to some and is, you know, not lacking in effort or ideas or chutzpah. But I just think that ultimately it doesn't come off.
Let's just not give it a number.
Fine.
Okay, look at us breaking the rules.
Yeah, you can complain about that then.
So, you guys, when we set a live chat for the spoiler discussion, we will definitely let you know about it. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it, work through it all with you.
Yeah.
That's coming up probably the beginning of May. So
subscribe and you'll find out when it's going to happen.
Let's do it. Thanks.